Hello everyone, my name is Kaiyu Shao. It's my pleasure to present our latest research idea in this video. In this paper, we aim to provide a cosmopolitan framework on the ethical social dimension of multinational corporations' international CSR. This paper is part of my doctoral dissertation at KU Leuven, collaborating with Professor Matti Janssen and Professor Michelle Greenwood. The question that draws our attention is that when multinational corporations engage in CSR activities abroad on an international level, how can they be ethical or responsible, given the diverse or even sometimes conflict social norms in the international arena? What are the ethical codes, if there is any, and how can we identify such code or principle? Our review on the literature reveals a general trend that scholars have gradually moved away from the belief in a set of pre-given universal norms rooted in the ideal world, but attend to the empirical conditions in the real world, trying to understand ethics as it is or as it can be in the current global life. More specifically, early work draws on the integrative social contract theory, forwarding the priority of the so-called hypernorms or universal norms in solving the dilemma posed by conflicting norms. Later, acknowledging the unidentifiability of universal norms, scholars forward the importance of communication, mostly draw on the communicative action theory of Habermas, where the consensus of all experts and affected people is conceptualized as a reference point in examining the responsibleness of multinational corporations. However, the validity of communication requires an ideal speech situation, featured by free access, equal rights, truthfulness of the participants, etc. And therefore the theory is often criticized of being utopian. The last decade has also witnessed the rise of a political CSR literature, which alternatively build on the deliberative democracy theory of Habermas. Conceptualizing the current global condition as a global governance gap, this literature forwards a critical role of business in filling such gap through participating in the process of public deliberation. Although political CSR claims to be less utopian and indeed better attend to the global condition, we argue that empirical condition prescribed by Habermas, namely an inclusive and responsive global civil society, is not there yet. To further this trend and to better build a discussion based on the current global empirical conditions, we turn to the critical cosmopolitan theory. Contemporary cosmopolitanism is concerned with how the process of globalization is irreversibly converting the very nature of the social world, and in particular, the transformative possibility and the self-other relation in that world. Rather than a theory of globalization, critical cosmopolitanism shall be best understood as a critique of globalization. It's a normative sociological theory in the sense that it on one hand provides an empirical analytical account of the phenomenon in light of the wide-ranging and deep-seated global connectivity, explaining what is changing, what drives the change. On the other hand, it also forwards normative ideals indicating where shall we go, based on not decontextualized deduction, but the possibilities or the conditions that are already bared in the present. Applying the theory to international CSR, critical cosmopolitanism offers both a set of analytical dimension and normative stance. Drawing the theory, we first forward the understanding of international CSR as transformative opportunities, advocating an attention to the embedded transformative possibilities in the CSR projects. Also, we develop a normative stance based on critical cosmopolitanism that argues the type of transformation needed is affirmative transformation. That is to work with the emerging trend and capacity of the local community, rather than externally imposing such direction of transformation. Second, we understand the relation between the multinational and the beneficiary community, not in terms of hyper versus local norms, but as a self-other relation, forwarding the need to examine the assumption carried by the multinationals, but also the local communities about themselves, the other, and about their relationships. Where we argue a positive recognition of the other shall become the normative principle. Lastly, we emphasize that international CSR cannot be understood outside certain historical and situated contexts. Specifically, an awareness of the injustice in both the colonial historical past and the contemporary global capitalism shall be the principle in understanding international CSR as a historical and contextual locus. Based on this discussion, we further reconceptualized three key concepts, namely international CSR, not as a space of managing, but of encountering; multinational corporations, not as a representative of universality, but as a particular self rooted in certain country and culture; and globalization, not only as an economic institutional process, but also as a social, cultural, political process. Okay, this is a brief introduction of our research paper. Thank you for watching the video. We look forward to receiving your comments in the chat room.